Wanga atik ubigisun Wee, Wanga atik lalorgisun Shaylin Cheddars. My Yupik name is Wee and my English name is Shaylin Cheddars. I am from Gamble, Alaska, which is located on St. Lawrence Island. We're about 33 miles away from Russia. My parents are Elisa Zagarova and Christopher Cheddars. My grandparents are Hansen Irgu and Rosa Irgu. My grandma and my mom are originally from Surenik, which is a little village in Russia, and my grandpa is from Gamble, but also has lived in Nome for a bit. Today I'm going to be talking about teaching with cultural competence and why I believe every educator should try their best to do it. Cultural competence is being able to understand, communicate with, and interact correctly with people from cultures different than your own. I chose to talk about this topic because I'm from Alaska and I go to school in Alaska. Every single teacher I've had was from out of the state. Some of them were amazing teachers and others not so much. The teachers who try to participate in our community and basically just make connections with the students were the ones I remember as being great. I know some of my friends who have trouble with school because they can't relate to the content they are supposed to be learning. I can see that students in our region aren't where they're supposed to be, and because of that, they believe they can't achieve academic success. I want them to know that they can, and that it's not possible. Two researchers, Gary Wheeledge and Robert Rutter, found that educators put the blame on the social, familial, and personal characteristics of the students who were lacking, instead of putting the blame on the effectiveness of school policies and practices. This quote is by author and educator Mary Batiste. Indigenous students should succeed because of who they are and not in spite of who they are. During the Alaska education class I recently took, we created a timeline about Alaska, which shows all of the major things that have happened to Alaska Natives since the first recorded contact in the 1700s. The original timeline we had made in the class dated back to 14,000 years ago, and this one right here is only about 200 years. So just 70 more of these, and that's how long the original timeline was. From out of the 40 events we had originally put in this span of 200 years, I picked 5 of them. The first was in 1784. Western schooling was established by Russians in Alaska. One of their main purposes was to assimilate. And in 1905, 2 separate education systems were made, but Alaska Natives were still forced to assimilate. And in 1924, to become a citizen of America, Alaska Natives had to pass a literacy test and have 5 actual citizens sign and say that the native was civilized. I had never heard of this before in my Alaska history class, and I think everyone should know this. In 1947, Mount Edgecombe and Wrangell Institute opened to assimilate. Native children went through horrible things during their stay at those boarding schools. And now, Wrangell Institute, about 10 or 15 years ago, was demolished, while today Mount Edgecombe is a school Alaska Natives actually want to attend. And in the 1970s, because of the children were sent to boarding schools, they weren't able to learn about their cultures. So in the 1970s, Alaska Natives filed a class action lawsuit against the government to have schools built in local communities. Here are 3 things that I believe educators should do in order to successfully teach with cultural competence. Educators should gain a strong foundation of background knowledge and use that knowledge to make connections with student culture in their teaching practices. Educators should recognize cultural differences as positive attributes which appropriate educational experiences can be built upon. They should also continually involve themselves in learning about the local community. By doing so, they can gain the right knowledge to provide integrated lessons. And because of that, the students will be able to understand and learn the content significantly better with the connections. Educators should also have positive relationships with their students. Once educators gain the background information, students will feel more trusting with their teacher. If students trust their teacher, they are more willing to take a risk in school and challenge the perspective of others. Then students can be able to perform better in school, which is what all teachers should expect from the very first day of class. High expectations will encourage students to work hard and become confident in themselves and their teacher. This can also help educators become better at their practice and enhance the whole learning environment. And last but not least, educators should reflect. They should be able to reflect on themselves and find ways to improve their teaching. They should also try to reflect on their biases, meaning they should have their culture in mind and be aware of possible differences. Doing so can help educators refrain from implicitly giving off the wrong vibe towards their students. In the Educators Rising book, it says that reflection includes a cycle of planning, instruction, assessment, and adjustment to enhance student learning. It's easy to neglect reflection, and if educators are not mindful, they can lose opportunities to learn about their students and improve their teaching performance. If or when I become a teacher, I hope to be able to do these things because all teachers should, no matter where they are teaching. I think both educators and students in Alaska should know all this information because for the students, it's their history, and the educators should have a foundation on the background of where they're teaching and who they're teaching. My references include Educators Rising, Alaska State Standards for Culturally Responsive Teaching, Barb Amarok, Gary Wheeledge, and Robert Rudder, and Education Week. Thank you.